Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing.
Welcome, everyone, to Morning Magazine for this February 3rd, 2021. Your host, James J. Malouf here. Thank you so much for joining us. We are spending the entire hour today with our friends over at the Wood County Sheriff's Department. We have Sheriff Shawn Becker in with us. Good morning, Shawn.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Good to have you with us. And we have Sarah Salewski with us, jail discharge planner. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning.
And, of course, Kev, our friend from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media here. We always appreciate them being with us. Thank you so much, everyone. Want to let you know right away that the sheriff is open to taking phone calls. If you have questions, you can give us a call at 424-2600. We're looking forward to you joining the conversation. First, before we kick things off, Shawn, how are you and yours doing? How's everybody holding up?
Doing well. I can't complain. If I did, nobody listened anyway. So, doing well. I had neck surgery recently, and I'm still kind of on the light duty train right now. So I'm hoping in the next 2-3 weeks I'll be back in uniform doing the normal thing, which I don't know what is yet, but
yeah.
But no, things are going well. Family's doing great. My daughter Jordan got engaged. She's a dispatcher here in Wood County, and her fiance popped the question a couple weeks ago. It was a pretty neat thing because we did it together, or he did it right in front of my wife and I, and future in-laws and everything. Had it all on video. So yeah, you get bored, check it out on Facebook. So one of those cool moments, and that day will be coming up rather quickly, July 3rd, and I've found out really quick to stay out of the planning.
I don't know much when it comes to that territory. I know to stay out of the way. I know that much, but
I think the best thing to do is just write the checks and smile and go from there. Made some suggestions. And I'm like, you guys got it.
Salut and mazel tov to them. That is fantastic. As a foolish romantic, I love hearing that. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, great fiance. I'm really happy. Going to be great with our family. David Moon. I'm really proud of him, and that was one of those life moments that you just don't forget.
She's a great kid too. She's come in for the water ski stuff and everything. Mm-hmm. Great kid. So that's really good to hear. Wonderful,
hearing that.
That is cool.
Yeah, a couple of events coming up. The polar plunge is not happening this year. I'm kind of bummed on that. In a way, I didn't really like doing the plunge, but it's for a great cause, the Special Olympics. There's still an event going on this Saturday out at the Ridges. It's a snowshoe walk. I know it's going to be cold with the weather coming in, but that's still going on. They're going to have that event coming. So hopefully next year, after we can get through some of this COVID stuff and return to some level of normalcy, we can have a polar plunge like we used to. I know the Sheriff's Department has had a team many years that participated in it. And we're looking forward to that coming back. So, but still something going out there. If you don't have anything going on this weekend, pop by the Ridges on Saturday during the early afternoon. That event will take place, and still you can get out and support the Special Olympics.
Yeah. It's one of the better things you can do with your time, supporting that. A great organization. I did a lot of work with them out in California, and just I met people from that from them over there, here in this state. You're not going to meet bad people that are a part of Special Olympics. There's some of the best people doing some hard work out there too.
Yeah, and that partnership with the law enforcement is always something I like to talk about because it's been together forever.
Yeah.
Not only just with the polar plunge, but the Run with the Cops event that had started a few years ago. It's just a great partnership. You talk about, again, COVID and the impacts that it's had on a lot of our nonprofits. And I know it's impacted, Special Olympics, but we still got to keep them in our thoughts that, hey, that's an outstanding organization that isn't just a local organization. You're exactly right, James. It goes nationally, actually worldwide. I had an opportunity to go to a conference in Las Vegas that you met with so many different folks from all over the world that talked about that organization and how big it is. So if you get an opportunity this weekend to get out there and help out and donate, that'd be outstanding.
Yeah, not a bad place to go to either. The Ridges, that's a nice place. You ain't gonna go wrong there.
I've been there like once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice. Yeah, I hear you. Sarah, good luck topping that. By the way, I was gonna say, so Sarah, how are you doing? But I feel bad now. I feel you got it. But how are you and yours doing?
Yeah, very well. Actually, we have a weekend coming up in common, July 2nd. I'm getting married. So,
Hey, Mazel Tov!
yeah,
All
maybe we
right.
should
Well,
just
congrats.
do it, and then she can like use the decorations after.
Yeah,
we should
I-
coordinate.
I
That
like it.
that
It
is
could
smart
be a
planning
good
by you.
plan, right?
Locally to here?
Rothschild.
Oh, not too far away.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
on.
we can pull that off.
Yeah,
well,
we can make it work.
you can give Jordan a call, and maybe we can
I
save
might
some
have
money.
to.
I like this.
I was going to
This
say,
is,
just trying to look out for you, Sean, just a little bit. Like, don't make any
did
plans
you know
for
this
her.
or not?
Did
Did
you
you?
know?
I think you did. This is nice. I like it.
We always appreciate you guys joining us, certainly from the Sheriff's Department. But I got to say, I really appreciate having Sarah in today. Not only with your job, we don't get to really focus on that end of this law enforcement very often. It's nice to hear from somebody who's actually in the field. But especially with when we're doing so much as we can, like especially it's one of the things you and I had in common from day one is spreading awareness about mental health. And talking about that. So first, before we dive into too many of those things, Sarah, can we kind of explain to people who may not know what a jail discharger planner is?
Sure. So I started in this role in the middle of November, so it's still relatively new, but my title is Discharge Planner and Case Manager. And essentially the role is I meet with folks while they're still in jail and we put together plans for when they're about to leave. So linking them to appropriate services and programs and hopefully kind of helping them have a step up when they're about to leave on their discharge date.
Yeah, I know that is a really huge thing for anybody, whether you've done a month or you've done 10 years, whatever it is. To have a game plan, to have a blueprint coming out it can be the difference between going back in and not, just to be blunt about it. And I know this from family members. I know this, from plenty of experience and everything. But Shawn, I have to ask too, is this something that has always been the case? Like, we've always had a department of this, or we've always had a jail discharge planner?
We used to, several years ago, one of our local representatives, Scott Krug, had the position. This was probably, I would estimate, probably 15 years or so ago. So it's not a new position as far as the creation of it. It's been out there for a while, at least the job has been. But Wood County hasn't had one since Sarah joined us for, like I said, quite some time. So the concept's been out there. And once we were looking at a lot of the mental health thoughts and ideas with our jail, this just seemed to fit perfectly. And then working with some people, and we got some grant monies available. And then we looked at the next step was, all right, where's that going to fit with the Sheriff's Department or Wood County? And we really thought of the idea of, well, the jail discharge planner doesn't have to be a Sheriff's Department employee. So we looked at it as, okay, Human Services, and then we got some buy-in from Human Services, and that's where technically Sarah works under, but she's working at the Sheriff's Department. But, the big thing that I look at that with the position is, being under Human Services gives her the opportunity to connect people with, the needs or the opportunities that Human Services can provide. I think I know it's a great partnership that we have, with Human Services, with their director, Brandon Verwink, and Pamela Ashbeck, who is our immediate supervisor, and having that communication, between all of us. And really, you look at, you have two of the biggest departments in Wood County, are working together. You've got a position that's working together, and I think that really helps the taxpayers out. It shows that, we've got two of our largest, organizations within Wood County strongly working together to help people out in the community. And I think that's a huge point to make.
It's one of the things, the common themes whenever we get together to talk is stopping this revolving door of doing this. That we don't, in this state at least, and this is one of these things I think nationally we're going to see a little bit more of as we're coming out of this pandemic, is getting away from this idea of jails being a business. That kind of thing. And we don't have to get into that subject necessarily, but I do appreciate, I've always respected the way that you've approached this, that you would prefer to have less work as far as bringing people back and forth or seeing familiar faces and these sorts of things.
And Sarah and I talked about that yesterday as we, prepared for today, about jails and the revenue opportunities. And you can't and we've talked about this quite a bit, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show, but we did a jail study. What does Wood County need? Do we need a new jail? And the study and what that showed. And yes, Wood County's paying a lot of money to other counties to house inmates, and we'd like to have them here because it really gives us the opportunity to work our investment in the programming that we're doing, and that cost is huge. But you don't look at building a facility to fill it. All right, you don't do that. I look at it the more that I see with a facility. Can you build something, if we go in that direction, that we can have the opportunity for the space for programming? Can we build that where you have people that are in custody for whatever reason, but you have to remember that they're going to return to the community. While we have them, can we provide some help, some level of programming, some counseling, something? And that's one of the biggest things that we've identified in our current jail, that we don't have the space even to really do a lot of the programming that we'd like. We're making do, but that's been one point that that we talked about. But you don't look at building a facility to fill it.
I really like
make
that.
Money.
I really like the way you put that.
It's out there. I mean, look at what WPACA, we've been paying WPACA a lot of money for many, many years. And you could look at that as a business contract, right? But you have to look at the human side of it, where you have people that are going to another jail, so far away from, the community that they live in. And there's a lot of other dynamics to consider. I mean, if we would build a facility, that's a dynamic that could be, discussed. But that's not the driving force on why we'd want to build a facility.
It's an interesting thing too, because most anything, an organization, a business, anything like that, when they're looking to build a building, they're thinking about how much we can fill it and stuff. And to hear your approach to that is welcoming and refreshing. But I also feel like it's the most intelligent I can hear anybody answer that question. That honestly, because that's the way it should be. That's the way that I would want somebody in your position to answer that question. It shouldn't be this old, kind of the old stereotype of law enforcement of, just the old. We all have these images in our head. I'm thinking immediately of the Dukes of Hazzard and the what's his name, the sheriff from it and stuff. But these ideas.
Compare me to?
No, not at all. Not at all. Boy, I just got in trouble. No, but we have these images in our head, just like you guys do, and everything, and everyone, all of our listeners out there do, and the only way we break those is by doing things like this, having conversations like this, having people like you and Sarah in the positions that you are to make change. Because change is it's no different than when we're kids and we're growing up, growing pains. That's what we're going through here. Our whole judicial system is going through some growing pains. We're a young country. It's going to happen. We're not like Europe or something like that that's been able to work on this for over 500 years or much longer than that and everything. So these things are going to take some time. They're going to take a little work, and they're going to take people like yourselves to make these changes happen.
And where she fits in with the mental health side of things, but the programming, we have to look at a way we can reduce our inmate population while keeping the community safe.
Right.
And while doing that, it fits into a new facility. What size facility, if Wood County would like to build something or should build something, what size, what is really truly needed, and then getting at all right, how we can lower the inmate population the right way, and we've been doing that. We've been working very hard with other people that connect in our criminal justice system, and just one thing to bring off the top of my head is the failure to pay warrants, the forfeiture warrants, the low risk offenders. Are those individuals people that need to be in custody if you don't pay a fine? A forfeiture, what is the penalty? It's the money. That's what we're looking at on a citation. That's all right. You speed, you don't wear your seatbelt, you pay a fine. Well, if you don't pay that, all right, what are the repercussions? Well, we can look at what a lot of other people. This is not a new concept. It's a collections route, where at some point you're going to have to pay through either a tax return or something, so the money will come to the county. What we were doing before was the warrant system, and we found a lot of research that was taking up 10 beds a day in our facility, between some municipalities and Wood County. And working with our judges, we were able to move forward with going the collections route, and just do the math. 10 beds a day, that might not seem much in our facility, but remember, we're paying $36 a day to WPACA to house one person per day. So that's a significant cost. And then you look at, that's a low risk offender. And then you look at the deputy or officer's time when they're dealing with somebody that might have a warrant for forfeiture. Look at that time, and you could what if that for all different circumstances. So we've done that, and that's working with a lot of our, not just the sheriff's department folks. There's a lot of time and effort that we all worked with the clerk of courts, other municipalities to move forward in that direction. Then we've talked about the programming. That's where, eventually, Sarah, you'll get to talk.
Yeah,
I just want to let you know, maybe in a half hour.
You're doing great.
About a half hour, maybe. I don't know.
When we got like 5 minutes left.
Yeah,
5 minutes,
right. I'll jump
Perfect.
in.
But the programming piece that we've just got into, well, I wouldn't say just got into, but the last couple of years is huge. Is just huge, and there's a lot of people out there that want to help out with that, whether it's church services to Three Bridges recovery, Mid-State Technical College. When you have that in their backyard, they're willing to come in and help people out get their GED, get some life skills going on or some other skills to help them with employment. And then when people graduate from those types of programs while they're in custody and they return to the community and they're successful, isn't that a huge win? Yeah. And look at that impact on your inmate population, where the last two programming things before COVID that we had, there's 5 inmates that went through it, now have been released and haven't come back to our jail. They haven't reoffended. And I'm sure there's life struggles out there, but they're working hard. They're in the community. They're providing for themselves and families, and just look at that impact. And I think the more that we can invest in that type of programming, I know the better we'll be.
It's not, when it comes to reducing the inmate population, it's not about not arresting people when they commit crimes and letting people like turning your, I'm not going to look at that. It's more about that return, that return inmate, that getting rid of that sort of thing and taking care of it when they're in-house, giving them. Because I feel like, especially as a society, we've almost forgotten what the purpose of jail is. It's certainly, you've got to, there is accountability. You have to pay for when you commit a crime and these sorts of things. But then it's about, well, what did you learn? I mean, when we're kids and we mess up, I mean, I know my mom, that was her favorite part of it, was finding out what I learned from it and everything, and any chance to test me. It's something that we do as adults too, and we do with our citizens, our neighbors, our everybody. It's a part of it's really one of the parts, the architects of our society is this system that we have that, okay, you mess up, you go and do your time. What did you learn from it? You think about that. You learn from it while you're doing your time. And how are you going to come out better from it? Right. That helps reducing that population quite a bit, I would imagine. There's also so many other layers to it when it comes to how do you do that once they're inside, once, you take care of those things. And Sarah, that's where you, I imagine, come in quite heavily when it comes to the end of that process.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think in addition to wanting to reduce recidivism with the programming, there's like the internal programming that can take place while they're still with us. And then it's the referral to the different programs and services once they leave, which is what I really am heavily leaning on right now. Due to COVID, we're not able to do a lot of internal programming at the moment. We're trying our best to do things by phone conversation or through visiting booths. But hopefully after COVID, we'll be able to exponentially increase programming that would be available. Of course, with the caveat that we don't have a lot of space. Yeah. So that kind of goes back to that jail study component too. Yeah. We've also talked about, Sheriff Becker and I, the EMP program. So it's another way for people to still be in custody, but they're out on the ankle monitor. There's diversion courts through drug treatment. So different alternative ways that you're still within being held accountable, but a little bit more support and ability to continue, being a citizen.
Yeah, you said the word that I wrote down here because I wanted to come back to that. And that's one of the things that I think that we, everybody in society, every human being on this planet could use more support. We all could. So we all understand that. I say that word out there. You think about it in your daily life and you're going to take a second and think about that. And yeah, maybe I could use a little more or whatever. And then you think about these individuals and how that they even less support than your normal person or anything. In many cases, it's how they ended up, part of how they ended up in the situation that they're in. Because when we talk about anybody who commits a crime, it is very rarely for one reason. or one thing led to that. It is often a multi-layered subject that involves many different things. So when you guys are trying to, okay, we have an inmate, we're trying to rehabilitate them, or trying to, help them become a better citizen, it isn't just a one-prong attack. It isn't just, well, we'll just touch this subject. You've got to hit on so many different things.
Oh, yeah.
And I imagine that this is one of those things that as you go through the job, you find out more and more of that. And everybody's a different case. Every person is going to be different. This person may not have any mental health issues or anything like that, whereas the next person might. So working that out's got to be difficult too. But I imagine a rewarding and challenging job.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to me, it's always important to remember that people are more than their charges. So there's a whole person behind what led them to those charges and why they're here. And so that's an opportunity for me to kind of dig in and speak with them and figure out what is all the components that led you here and how can I help when you leave. I am collecting ACE score data, adverse childhood experiences. I know Sheriff Becker is really interested in that. That asks a lot about childhood experiences prior to the age of 18 that really impact your resiliency later in life. Yeah. They won't specifically, you can't correlate them specifically to the decisions you might do, but they definitely have a huge impact on the person you become. The CDC says that generally in the general population, usually everyone has at least a score of 1. The highest you can get is 10, with maybe an average around 3 for the general population. For those that I have worked with so far, out of a survey about 51 people, our average is about 6 in the jail population. So a lot of those adverse childhood experiences, for sure. So there's a lot to work through.
There are few people that escape childhood without some trauma. I mean, I have to smile through that myself with coming from my own background and everything, because it's the only way to get through it sometimes. But it's also one of those things I would hope shows some commonality between all of us, that creates some unity with all of us, that it's almost one of those things that almost everybody has in common. We've all went through something as kids. And it's, it sucks. It's not cool. It's not great. But it also, hopefully, we need more and more anything that can bring us closer together as people. I'll take it. And that's one of those things that I think you can find a commonality with. Maybe you've never committed a crime in your life. You've never had to set foot in a jail before or anything like that. But you can relate to that. You can relate to that struggle and what that's like and dealing with that. And hopefully, if you're that person that was never in jail or anything, you had a good support system. You had people to help you through this. That's where you guys come in handy for this so much, because I don't know if I'm going to word this the right way. But one thing that I've noticed with what you do, Shawn, and everything is so much of this, I don't think a lot of us would think, well, this isn't your job. This isn't part of, you've got enough to do. You've got a lot on your plate already. You're not psychiatrists. You're not these kind of things. Why, we're not asking this of you, or we shouldn't have to ask this of you. Like many conversations you and I have had before, when it comes to our police department, our sheriff's department, you guys seem to get something tacked onto your job titles every day. And you're not able to really focus on other things and stuff. But you don't complain. You're trying to figure out what you can do with the tools you have and what you can do to make our society better.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you 100%. That, I look at the jail as that opportunity. I mean, the jail's not closed. If somebody commits a crime, that's on them. But while you're in custody, whether a recent arrest or even sentenced to time, I look at that as, okay, there's an opportunity now to figure out, okay, you made a bad decision. All right, I'm hoping that individual realizes it and maybe looks at, as you mentioned, the why factor. All right, what brought you here? And now how can we correct it? Yeah. How can you do your time, pay your debt to society, and then get out and then be successful. I mean, there's a lot of forgiveness out there, whether it's employers, family, friends. There's people out there that have that, that are good-hearted people that will give people second, third chances to move forward and be successful. And
this is America. And if there are a handful of things we love in this country, we love apple pie, we love our baseball, and we love a comeback story. We love a comeback story. And I mean, and I'm saying that a little half-heartedly, but it is true. It is something that we really enjoy. We like to see that in our not just celebrities and everything. We like to see this with our everyday citizens, people in general. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Before we do that, I had something funny happen here that I have to let you and the audience in on.
Okay.
So I was writing, I like to write notes, behind the curtain look here. I write notes and everything so I can touch on something. I don't want to interrupt you when you're talking. But I was writing down what would you say would be off the top of your head. And I'm writing this down. Like a minute later, you said something about off the top of my head. I can't. I just thought that was too funny that I was writing it. You didn't see me write that. And then you used that term over there. But before we go to commercial break, I did want to ask this question. That what would you say off the top of your head would be the percentage of return inmates, your first-time offenders and your second-time offenders, like that kind of thing? Like, what would you say is the difference between that? Like, how many people are return offenders and how many are just one-time offenders?
Good question. I don't know off the top of my head.
Oh, I certainly. I know you don't have the numbers in front of you. I just
for first-time offenders to somebody that has been in custody before for something similar or different. So I don't have that number for you.
That's what I thought your answer would be, and that tells you right there how important this is. That tells you right that we don't have that stat just pulled up right away or something like that. It tells you why this is such a vital subject of stopping that revolving door, of putting a stop to that and everything.
I'll just go back to the 5 individuals that participated in both of the program options that we had, and then also worked with our mental health providers in our jail. I hate to say the monetary value, but there is one because, well, what do we pay? What do we pay other places? And I go back to $36 a day, but that is a monetary value there that people should look at. But that's not the only thing that they should look at that would cost the county. It's again that person being successful out in the community, providing for a family or themselves, and that's priceless.
Well, that is so true. Well said. Very well said. I also think that this is one of those things where for anybody out there listening and like, well, this doesn't affect me. I don't have anybody in jail. I'm not committing crimes. It affects everybody. This is if I have to get to tax dollars and things like that, I mean, there's a lot of depth there. It affects you one way or another. So these are important things that we're doing and talking about here. And we're able to talk about it with our friends at the Wood County Sheriff's Department. I want to thank our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media as well. Going to take a quick commercial break. Want to remind you, though, you can call up and join the conversation, 424-2600. We'll be back with more Morning Magazine here on AM 1320 WFHR. Thanks a lot, Michael. It is 15 in Stevens Point, 14 in Marshfield, 7 in Wausau, 10 here in Wisconsin Rapids, where we have our friends from the Wood County Sheriff's Department joining us, Sheriff Shawn Becker, Sarah Salewski, jail discharge planner, and, of course, Kev Barger, our Bargender. Sorry, Kevin. I apologize for that. From Wisconsin Rapids Community Media with us as well, and appreciate them hanging out with us today. And thank you both for being in.
Yeah.
It is one of these days, Shawn, you and I just 90s baseball. I promise you, man. We're just going to have a show. That's all we do is talk 90s baseball. We're going to have an easy show one day, I promise.
Well, go on YouTube and watch all the junk years of all the baseball cards that are out there and what's valuable, and most of it's not. And then, what's depressing for me is I go back to my collection, I'm like, how do I really want to search for that one card that might be worth $5 out of like thousands? And it's like, so we might get really depressed about the card collection, but baseball might be fun to talk about.
My dad's got a Nolan Ryan rookie card that he sold when I was a kid that he still won't let go of. He still remembers selling it for less than what it was. Yeah, it's one of those traumas that doesn't leave you very quickly.
No, it doesn't. Shout out to Mike Malouf, a retiree. His birthday today. He was one of our supervisors in the jail. Great career. One of our range instructors. Taught out at Mid-State Technical College, great instructor, just a great person. So I just want to do a shout out to him. Thank you for having Randy on. He did retire a week ago last Tuesday. Tough one for me, as I talked about. One of my best friends that very, very happy that he's going on to that next phase in his life. And I tried to get him to do the radio show up in Marshfield, but he already retired, and he told me no. And part of it is because I don't have to listen to you anymore.
Right.
So I'm like, all right. Thanks, buddy.
I have to. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to thank you. Remember to thank you off air for that. That was one of my favorite shows I've done since I've been doing Morning Magazine. That was such a fun show. It was rewarding. It was just I especially somebody that likes kind of like going back in a person's career and kind of just But yeah, it was just fun, and he is such a great person to talk
Yeah.
to. Like as far as on air, off air, like great guy.
Yeah,
Great
just
guy.
a huge heart, and we miss him. We're already having our growing pains, and in fact, we were talking about, hey, just call Randy. We had a question on a grant, and like, oh, just call Randy. He would probably know that right off the top of his head, and he's made himself available to us, and will. I mean that. The passion is still there for the career and for the sheriff's department, and I miss him, but he's one of my best friends, and I'm very happy for him. And then another thing, Scott Mahaka is going to retire on March 4th, so I'll try to get him up on the radio show next month, so he can do the same thing. I know Scott's been on the show as well, but another just outstanding career. Started his law enforcement career in the 80s, was hired at the sheriff's department here early 90s, started as a sworn supervisor in our jail, then transitioned out to the road, and then was our training sergeant for a while, ran our SWAT team, and now has been an investigator sergeant for many, many years. Another just awesome career too, and another really good friend, and very happy for him as well. So I'm starting to become the old individual at the department. And
when did that happen?
I don't know. I got nothing for you.
Father Time is undefeated. Yeah. Unless you're Tom Brady. Father Time is undefeated.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that.
I do have something I want to touch on before we get to any other notes that you have over there, Shawn. Sarah, when it comes to your job, I was thinking about this going into it. And you touched on this a little bit too, Shawn, already, where it's such a difficult kind of thing to help people prepare for the next stage in their life and the next phase and those sorts of things. One of the things that I wouldn't say it's an advantage, but it's certainly an asset, is having, like you mentioned, Mid-State in the community and things like that. How many different organizations are you able to reach out to and go to when it comes to like helping somebody? Yeah. I come from this background. I'm looking to, all I need is just a steady paycheck. That's all I need. I'm just looking for that kind of thing. And these are my skill sets. Are you able to reach out to other community businesses, people like Mid-State and that, and kind of help, play the middleman in a way and kind of connect the dots here?
Sure. As far as employment, skills, technical training, things like that, Mid-State, like Shawn was saying, they partner with us for internal programming right now to help folks gain their GED or other credentials that could help with some of those tech resources. One of the things that I talk about when I meet with people, one of the many, many things, is that employment piece and skills and what they can build on. So there's a bunch of different programs and services. So one go-to is Food Share FSET, Food Share Employment and Training Program is able. They work with local job agencies, employers, organizations around a multi-county region. They can help people get linked to different employment services, Windows to Work program, Rob Gala through the North Central Community Development Board. I think I missed a word in there. It's a long one. He's able to work with folks while they're still incarcerated and link them to jobs when they're out. There's a new Support to Communities grant for those that have indirect or direct experience with substance use disorder to link them to employment. So there's resources all over the place. It's just finding them and learning about them and linking people to them. So
I have I'd like to ask you both this question then. When it comes, because I know how I can't help. I don't mean to make it personal or about my family, but I think of my dad so often. I've never met anybody in my life that is a harder worker and that loves to work more. You don't have to pay my dad to do overtime. He would love. Well, he welcomes it. He loved doing it and everything. He's retired now and such, but throughout our whole lives, him being in and out, he certainly has a record, and it was always a difficulty thing if him and Kevin were applying for a job. And they have the same background, same resume and everything, but Kev doesn't have a record. So my dad would, they choose Kev over my dad. And I'm not judging employers for doing that or anything like that. We all kind of understand the game here. But do you think that's gotten better as we're going forward here, where I come out, I'm looking for work, I'm a hard worker, I've got a good resume, I also have a record. So they're not even, they just don't even look at my resume, that kind of thing. Or do you think that's getting better? And I'll ask both of you this, Sarah.
Sure. I'm not sure historically what it was. I can say now it's still not great. CCAP is often used. Most of the folks that I work with, or pretty much everyone I talk to, really does struggle with their criminal record. A large majority of them say it keeps them from different programs and services, especially employment and housing. Are two of like probably the biggest ones with criminal record. So those employment agencies that I speak with, FSET, Windows to Work, they specifically have resources for people who have criminal records. They work with organizations to form those relationships so they know which organizations, when, like you said, it gets to the final, is it me or this person? That criminal record won't be the number one indicator why you wouldn't get that position. They're working with them to hopefully get them in and working with those employers.
Shawn, from where you sit and what you've seen, do you think, especially coming from you have such a long, oh boy, I'm making you feel old again. You have
Here
such,
we go.
You're so young today.
You've been doing this for a while, so you certainly have kind of seen the beginnings and where you are now. Do you think that there has been an improvement? Have you seen some growth? I'm not saying a lot, but just even a little bit of growth when it comes to
Well,
that.
based upon what Sarah just said, yes.
Yeah.
But the unfortunate fact there is it does have an impact. But you hope that I still look at, we do have a lot of people in the community that contact us to employ people that are either currently in custody or going to get released. So I mean, I think that's a good sign, but I do agree with Sarah that those issues are still out there. That those biases do CCAP is out there, and that's where most employers will do a background check on it, and it's easy, and it's all public record. And you hope that they don't hold an individual that could be a good applicant and say, okay, look at what's there, and they should dig into it a little bit further. Looking at timing. Okay, was this an issue that happened many years ago, and then that brings a lot of other factors that could be discussed at an interview. But and to bring up a little bit more too that Sarah and I have talked about is the housing issue, and when you have somebody that is in custody for like over 30 days, you think they can pay rent? And then you look at, and what we found out in the last couple months is, the housing issue or homelessness of people that are being released from custody. And that's a huge thing to, you just don't want to open up the door and say, okay, here's your property and go. And they don't have a place to stay. And that's something that we've been working on, and she's identified as a pretty big need in our community, whether it's Wisconsin Rapids or Marshfield or anywhere within Wood County. That's something that we're working on, because it's definitely a need. Another thing that I could probably say that there's been an improvement on is, you look at law enforcement applicants, and back in the day when I started, it was like you had to have a pristine background. Like nothing. There can be a thing, just to, I use myself as an example. And, in the mid 90s when I was trying to get into law enforcement, I'm not perfect, but I'm not a felon, and I went through a lot of that where like, oh no, you have a couple speeding tickets on your record and that thing. Now we look at applicants a little different, and we dig quite a bit further. And so I look at that there is some level of improvement, out there, but we can definitely be better.
Yeah. And I want to ask both of you, well, how do we beat that stigma? How do we beat that stigma of the employer looking at that? Because certainly everybody agrees that we're not ever going to be in a position of making employers hire certain people or whatever. We're not about that. But and I don't mean this as a comp of, obviously they're two very different worlds. But I also know what it's like for the ODC. And for them, when they were first starting out, my Aunt Pat was a member there, and she had a hard time finding work with her mental disabilities and such. And these are two very different worlds and very different people for different reasons, but at the same time, they have a similar problem. And so when it came for them to be able to beat that, the only thing that really can work is time and showing, hey, these people they're some of the hardest workers you'll ever meet. And you have this as evidence and this is evidence, and more employers employ them and see that, and then they see for their own eyes that it works. I feel like that's something that we're going to need to have happen a lot more with inmates and that sort of thing, and where they see that, oh yeah, they're no different. They're no different than me or you or anything like that. They're harder worker just like I am and stuff. And that feels like one of the only ways to beat this, to make this better in our society is just time. It's going to take patience. It's going to take, which we all are sick of being patient, but it is going to kind of have to take. But I can't think it like I can ask both of you to how we beat that, but really I can't think of a better answer than that. Really, then I don't know how else we can do it. I'm sure there are other things we can do to help that get along, but I don't know what more we can do. Then it's going to take employers taking chances and doing these things.
And some do. I mean, like I said, I think that we've seen success. I mean, but there are unfortunately the biases out there that people do check CCAP and do background checks, and there are comparables out there. You just hope that an employer looks at it, an interview process and see how people do through that kind of a in that part of the process where they come in and you can sell themselves and talk about it. Hey, we're not perfect. This is what happened, and I'm looking for a second chance.
Well, and whether we're talking about the ODC or this inmate situation with going into the workforce, even if we're stretching this and we're talking about minorities and people like myself getting opportunities and everything like that, nobody's asking for a handout. They just want an opportunity. Just want the chance. Just give me a chance, and go from there. And also, I think something to what you kind of sort of touched on this a bit, Shawn. But everybody is a case by case. Everybody's different. Two people can commit the same crime and have different reasons. That sort of thing. So it's important for employers, for us as citizens, everybody out there, to do our homework. Don't just read the headline. Look a little bit more in depth into that person. I think that you brought up a great point about age, Shawn. I don't know anybody out there listening that didn't do something when they were young. And I'm not saying necessarily something illegal, but something that was borderline maybe. I don't know.
Don't look me up on CCAP.
Yeah, I did. We're going to take our final commercial break really quick here. When we come back, we'll have more with our Wood County Sheriff's Department on the Morning Magazine, AM 1320. This is WFHR. I don't know where you wanted to take the conversation with the last 9 minutes here or so, but
just one thing. Lance Pummel, I believe, had brought this up already on air, that he put together a jail ad hoc committee where they can take a look at the jail study, and that committee will dive into the jail concerns and the issues that we're facing right now. So very happy that was put together. They're meeting pretty much weekly and coming up with some really, really good questions about what direction we should go. And I think the timeline for that committee to come forward with a recommendation, either way, or what we should do, what Wood County should do, is around June. So I'm looking forward to working with the committee. Laura Van Alstyne and Jake Hahn are both our county board members that are heading up that committee. So looking forward to working with both of them, answering questions, or at least pointing them in the right direction on where we can answer some questions. Because as we talked before, I mean, it seems like it's always mentioned when I come on about the jail, but it's something we can't ignore.
Well, that's just it. I said to Lance that day, you and I have said this before, it's going to need to get done. I mean, this is one of those, we're just kicking the can right now. It's going to eventually have to happen. And I think that I can't speak for anybody else, but I'd like to have our generation, our people, the ones to make this happen. I'd like that. I think that not only is that the right people for the job and everything, but we have a responsibility, the ones here right now, to think about the people in 20 years from now, in 30 years from now, and everything. That's part of the the thing that we sign up for being here and everything. So I do like the idea of this going forward more and more. Hopefully we're able to touch on this more, and maybe even having a day where we can have all you guys in and just dive into this, take calls, let people ask their questions, something like that.
That's a great idea.
Whatever we can do.
It's pretty early with the committee. They've only met a couple times, but I'm excited to have the opportunity to work with them. And again, and it's not our job to sell a jail. Bottom line, it shouldn't be. And it shouldn't be your job, by the way. You guys shouldn't have to even be taking time to talk about this. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but it angers me. You guys got enough on your plate. You guys got other things you should be able to focus on. We should have people like Lance, some people like that, and Wood County Chairman, Boardman, those people. Yes, I understand them having to sell it. You guys should not have to do it. You have enough to do. But I appreciate that. But our job is to provide accurate information so the powers that be can make a decision moving forward. And that's what our commitment is at the Sheriff's Department, that from all levels we'll answer the questions that are asked of us and give that information so the county board has a really good, well-informed, decision either way that they can stand behind and move forward with. Bottom line, that's our goal.
We've gotten into this thing where it's so easy to just cancel. It's so easy to say, you know what, you lose your turn, you're out of here. That's the lazy way of doing things. We need to get more and more to a point of where it's not just, okay, this, you messed up, and how are we going to fix this? Or how can you learn from this? How can you grow as a human being from this? Mm-hmm. And I think about that, certainly it's a bit of a theme that we've been talking about today with our inmates and then making the next phase of their life happen and be progressive and positive. Mm-hmm. But it's also something as a society we have to do a little bit more of and be more understanding of. It's really easy to just say, well, you said the wrong thing online, so you're gone. It is another thing to say, well, why did you say that? And look, this is the actual information. This is why what you're saying is wrong and how we can learn and grow together of this. When we shun people, we do no good to anybody, not especially the person that's being shunned. But that's not even my point. It's more about us as a society. We don't look good doing that. And you're not that far away from being that person being shunned. Every one of us is just a step away from tweeting the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing or committing a crime or anything like that. Could be virtually any single person can be that person. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty easy to point the finger. You got to look at the three pointing back at you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what would you like to finish up with? Putting you on the spot, Sarah.
Yeah.
Way too quiet.
I know.
She told me.
Got off a little easy here today, Sarah.
Shawn. Yeah, that's what she told me yesterday. I can talk for like hours. And I'm like, okay.
I'll let you chime in, but it went backwards on me. Next time I'll come by myself.
One thing I would like to.
Now.
No, don't.
I'm just kidding.
But before we do wrap up, though, Sarah, and we do have you here, one thing I would like to ask, especially this being new for you, not new, but newer for you and learning as you go along. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that you feel like our listeners out there should know about what it is for these inmates to leave and go to the next phase, and just to give a little bit of perspective for them, or maybe a little empathy, a little understanding? I'm not looking for anybody to feel sorry for anybody, but empathy is different. Empathy is just understanding. Right. I don't understand what it's like, what you're going through. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's like to be a woman, but I can empathize with it. Sure. That sort of thing.
Yep. Actually, I think empathy is probably one of my favorite words, because I think to do this job, you need to have a lot of empathy. You need to be able to meet people where they're at and try to understand where they're coming from, and treat them like another person. So I think just to kind of wrap in everything that you were saying is that the biggest problems usually take the most work. So whether that's looking at the jail or that's looking at an individual and trying to solve, generally people like to pick the easy solutions and the things that are quick fixes and quick wins. And I think our jobs are those long-term hard problems, hard wins to get to. So I'm excited about the future. I think things will be really great. I think with Sheriff Becker, what I've really realized is he's looking at the potential and the opportunity of what we can do with the people who are currently incarcerated. So it's not just about, obviously, we need to keep our community safe and people need to be held accountable. But while we have them, can we do some rehabilitative work to decrease them coming back and hopefully help them get back off on the right foot? So the work is really important. I meet with folks regularly in the jail. We talk about a slew of things: health insurance, prescriptions, continuity of care for mental health, substance use treatment. Housing is a huge one. I have been singing from the mountaintops of Wisconsin Rapids about housing since pretty much day one. It's really difficult to stand in a lobby with somebody who has no place to go, no friends or family in this area, and unsure of where they're going to sleep that night, and then drive home in your car to your house to sleep in your bed that has a down comforter. It's hard. You have a lot of empathy. So housing is a really huge issue in Wood County. We really do not have a lot of housing resources. And for people listening, you might look around and think, okay, there's houses everywhere. There's apartments people are building. But what is the income level needed for that? For the people leaving jail, a lot of them do not have that income because they've lost their employment while they've been incarcerated. They're struggling with substance use disorders, which also impairs their ability to find employment. And then that the housing piece. So we need something that is more transitional, something to help them when they get out, to get on their feet, to move into that long-term permanent housing, something that's supportive and recovery for people with substance use. Those are some huge critical needs. And there's a lot of people working and talking about it, and hopefully something can come to fruition soon.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. And it's one of those things too, where again, if you don't think this affects you, it affects everybody, because that person that is in that position and looking for a place to stay or something like that. I can tell you, I can think of a homeless guy when I was a kid growing up that literally he'd just try to commit crimes just to get out. You knew when winter was coming because he was trying to get locked up because he had nowhere else to go. And that's just an extreme situation. Whether,
I think it's more common than you think. Especially in Wisconsin. This is not Florida. You can't sleep outside and not freeze to death. So we have a lot of people who leave and do plan on committing small crimes to come back because they don't have housing. They don't know where their next meal is going to be. They don't know how to stay warm.
And that's a failure on us as a society. That is something that we should all take a note from, all take an L on, and all want to get better at, all want to improve, all want to help you guys, everybody making this better, because it makes us better. It's not as if we're doing something here and we're taking from something. We're adding. We're adding to society. We're looking to do something to better our society with this and make it better and everything. I wish we can go into overtime and going over the back fence here with you two. I do appreciate the time so much from both of you and the transparency, everything, all the knowledge that you guys bring to this, and most importantly, what you do on a day-to-day basis. We appreciate you. You stay safe and strong out there and take care, okay?
Yeah, thank you, James.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank Kev and our friends over at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media as well as doing a great job as always. How you stay so quiet over there, I don't know. We appreciate you, Kev. Thanks so much. And again, thanks to our Wood County Sheriff's Department for being with us. We'll have more Morning Magazine for you tomorrow right here on AM 1320 WFHR.